Chosen one. Your family's multi-generational wealth transfer starts now. I repeat, your family's multi-generational wealth transfer starts now. Chosen one. This is not a coincidence, and it is not just another message about money or success. What you are hearing right now is a prophetic announcement over your bloodline. Your family's multi-generational wealth transfer is not something you are waiting for in the distant future. It is being activated now in this very season because heaven has marked you as the starting point. The struggle did not stop with you by accident, and the blessing will not end with you either. God is establishing a divine pattern through your life that will echo through your children and your children's children. Chosen one. This is not about hustle, luck, or worldly systems. This is about a supernatural transfer authorized by covenant alignment and obedience. You were chosen to break cycles of lack and to steward a flow of provision that outlives you. The pressure you felt, the responsibility you carry, and the deep concern you have for your family's future are all signs that you are standing at the threshold of something generational. Anointed one, as you stay connected to this message, allow your spirit to remain open. If this word resonates with you, stay with this channel, align yourself by subscribing, and type 777 in the comments as a declaration that you receive what heaven is releasing. This is your moment. The transfer starts now. Chosen one. What is happening around you right now is not random, and it is not delayed. Heaven is not observing your family line from a distance anymore. It is intervening. There comes a moment when God stops working around a person and begins working through them, and that moment is when generational patterns are confronted and rewritten. You were not chosen just to survive your season. You were chosen to interrupt a lineage, to become the hinge point where lack ends and legacy begins. This is why your life has felt heavier than others, why responsibility found you early, and why you have always sensed that your decisions carry consequences beyond yourself. That awareness is not anxiety. It is calling. For a long time, you may have wondered why progress felt slower for you than for people who seemed less disciplined, less prayerful, or less intentional. I remember standing in that same tension, watching doors open for others while mine stayed shut, even though I was doing everything right. What I did not understand then was that God was not withholding provision. He was expanding capacity. Multi-generational wealth does not arrive like a paycheck. It arrives like a mantle, and mantles require strengthening before they are released. What feels like delay is often divine insulation, protecting what is being prepared from collapsing under premature exposure. Anointed one, there is a reason heaven does not rush generational transfers. Wealth that is meant to bless children and grandchildren must first heal the inner foundations of the one who receives it. God will not pour increase into a vessel still shaped by fear, survival, or scarcity thinking. That is why your inner world has been under such intense refinement. The stretching of your faith, the pruning of relationships, the repeated moments where you were forced to trust without evidence, all of it was preparation. Scripture speaks of promises that wait for an appointed time, and that waiting is not passive. It is formative. It turns ordinary obedience into a doorway for supernatural alignment. Chosen one, your family's wealth transfer does not begin with money. It begins with alignment. It begins when heaven recognizes that your heart is no longer asking, "How do I escape this?" but instead asks, "How do I steward what comes next?" That shift is subtle, but it changes everything. I have watched people receive sudden financial breakthroughs only to lose them because their identity was still rooted in survival. They treated increase like rescue instead of responsibility. God is ensuring that what comes to you does not evaporate. What is approaching your life is designed to stay, to grow, and to multiply through generations, not collapse under impulse or fear. There is a spiritual law at work here. What God establishes through covenant is not sustained by effort alone. When Abraham received the promise, it was not because he had perfected his path. It was because he aligned his obedience with God's voice. In the same way, your family line is being repositioned not because you are flawless, but because you have learned to listen, to yield, and to remain faithful even when outcomes were unclear. I remember seasons where my own prayers shifted from asking God to fix circumstances to asking Him to shape me. That was the moment things began to move quietly behind the scenes. Not loudly, not instantly, but permanently. Anointed One. The pressure you feel to get it right is not condemnation, it is confirmation. You are standing at the intersection where your obedience affects people you may never meet. This is why heaven has been so intentional with you. The enemy attacks bloodlines before blessings manifest because he understands what is at stake. But hear this clearly, resistance is not a sign of failure. It is often the final confirmation that alignment is complete. When opposition intensifies without explanation, it is usually because something irreversible is forming beneath the surface. Chosen One, wealth that carries generational impact moves differently. It does not arrive through panic or striving. It flows through peace, clarity, and divine timing. You may have noticed recently that your discernment has sharpened. Decisions that once felt confusing now feel clear. Desires that once drove you no longer control you. That is not maturity by accident. That is heaven recalibrating your inner compass so you can recognize what belongs to you when it appears. God does not announce generational shifts with noise. He announces them with inner stillness. When the soul becomes quiet, alignment follows. There were times in my own journey when I thought the silence meant nothing was happening. In reality, silence was the evidence that God was building something beyond my comprehension. The loud seasons were about survival. The quiet seasons were about strategy. If you are experiencing a strange calm, even while circumstances remain unresolved, that is not complacency. That is trust being activated. Heaven does not release legacy-level provision into chaos. It releases it into order, alignment, and surrendered authority. Anointed One, your family's story is changing because your posture has changed. Heaven responds to posture more than performance. When God sees someone who can hold provision without losing humility, who can receive increase without forgetting the source, who can bless others without needing validation, He moves decisively. That is why what is coming to you will not look like luck. It will look like alignment. People may not understand how doors opened or why opportunities found you, but you will know. You will recognize the signature of God on it. Chosen One, this is the season where you stop asking whether it will happen and begin preparing for how you will steward it. Preparation is faith in action. It is clearing space, aligning vision, and setting intention before evidence arrives. Heaven is not asking you to control outcomes. It is asking you to trust timing. When the transfer begins, it will feel sudden to others but familiar to you because your spirit has already been trained to carry it. Stay here in this moment. Let this truth settle deeply. You are not late. You are not behind. You are positioned. What God is initiating through you will not end with you, and it will not fail. The transfer has already begun in the unseen, and when heaven moves, first manifestation always follows. There is a reason your relationships, especially the idea of partnership and unity, have carried unusual spiritual weight in your life. Heaven does not treat marriage or covenant lightly when it comes to generational wealth. From the beginning, God designed increase to flow through alignment, not isolation. What many people call luck or chemistry is in truth agreement at a spiritual level. When two lives come into divine alignment, provision multiplies in ways effort alone could never produce. This is not theory. This is a pattern written into creation itself. Chosen one. You may have noticed that every major breakthrough in Scripture was preceded by alignment between people, not just obedience from individuals. When agreement was present, increase followed. When division entered, provision dried up. This is why the enemy fights unity so aggressively in families, marriages, and bloodlines. Division is the fastest way to interrupt generational transfer. Unity is the fastest way to activate it. What God is doing now is not just blessing you as an individual. He is restoring alignment so that increase can move without obstruction. I learned this the hard way. There were seasons when I prayed for more resources, more opportunities, more open doors, but nothing shifted until my inner posture toward partnership changed. I had to confront pride disguised as independence and fear disguised as self-protection. Once alignment replaced control, things began to move. Not all at once, but with a steadiness that did not collapse under pressure. That is how heaven-backed provision works. It flows through agreement, not anxiety. Anointed one. The wealth that sustains generations requires more than intelligence or discipline. It requires shared vision. Two people moving in different directions can generate income, but they cannot sustain legacy. Legacy requires agreement at the level of values, purpose, and stewardship. That is why God refines your discernment so deeply before He releases generational increase. He is teaching you to recognize alignment, not just attraction. The wrong agreement can drain decades of potential. The right agreement can accelerate generations of blessing. This is also why some relationships did not last, even when you prayed for them to. What felt like loss was often protection. Heaven does not allow covenant-level blessing to attach to unstable foundations. If God removed certain people from your life, it was not because you were unworthy of connection. It was because what you are about to carry requires stability, maturity, and shared vision. Multi-generational wealth does not tolerate constant emotional chaos. It requires peace, order, and mutual honor. Chosen one, understand this clearly. Unity does not mean sameness. It means agreement. Two people can have different personalities, strengths, and callings, and still operate in powerful unity. In fact, difference is often the very channel through which increase flows. One carries vision, the other carries execution. One discerns timing, the other discerns structure. When those differences submit to a shared purpose, provision multiplies naturally. This is how heaven designs sustainable increase. You may be single right now, and this message still applies directly to you. Alignment begins before partnership manifests. God prepares you to recognize what belongs to you by healing what once distorted your discernment. If you have ever wondered why you could not force certain relationships to work, it is because heaven was training your spirit to value alignment over urgency. The wealth transfer connected to your bloodline cannot attach to impatience. It attaches to discernment. Anointed one. This is why your inner life has been under such refinement. God is teaching you how to agree with His timing instead of arguing with it. Agreement is not passive. It is an active trust that says, I will not rush what must last. When heaven sees that posture, it responds. The alignment you are entering now is not accidental. It is intentional, strategic, and protected. I have watched families build fortunes only to lose them within a generation because unity was never established. Money arrived faster than maturity. Resources outpaced wisdom. God refuses to repeat that pattern with you. He is reversing it. He is establishing wisdom first, alignment second, and increase third. This order matters. When the order is right, the outcome is secure. Chosen one, notice how your conversations have changed. You no longer crave noise. You crave clarity. You no longer want fast results. You want lasting ones. That shift is evidence that heaven is repositioning you for covenant-level provision. When your desires align with God's design, doors open without striving. People align without manipulation. Opportunities appear without force. This is the signature of supernatural alignment. The enemy would love you to believe that wealth comes through pressure, compromise, or shortcuts. Heaven operates differently. Heaven releases increase through agreement, integrity, and patience. What looks slow to the world is often precise to God. Precision produces permanence. What God establishes through covenant cannot be undone by trends, economies, or opinions. Anointed one, you are not being prepared to merely receive. You are being prepared to steward. Stewardship is the difference between temporary abundance and generational impact. It asks different questions. Not how much can I gain, but how much can I sustain? Not how fast can this grow, but how deeply can this root? These questions reveal maturity, and maturity attracts trust. Heaven entrusts wealth to those who can protect it from destruction. Chosen one, this is why your life has required patience. Patience is not delay. It is structure. It strengthens the foundation, so the weight of increase does not crush what God is building. If your journey has felt slower than others, it is because God is building something that others are not required to carry. Speed impresses people. Stability honors God. As alignment continues to form around you, expect clarity to increase. Confusion cannot survive where agreement exists. Expect conversations to shift, decisions to simplify, and priorities to reorder themselves naturally. This is not loss, it is refinement. Every refinement is making room for what is approaching. Heaven is not only aligning you with people, it is aligning you with timing, opportunity, and provision. When alignment is complete, movement becomes effortless. What once required constant effort will begin to flow. Not because you worked harder, but because you stopped resisting God's design. Stay present in this season. Do not rush it. Do not doubt it. You are not behind. You are being aligned. And alignment is always the doorway through which generational wealth enters and remains. There is a deeper layer to this transfer that many people never consider, and it is the reason why most wealth collapses by the third generation. Money can be inherited, but wisdom must be imparted. Resources can be passed down, but values must be modeled. Heaven is not only moving finances into your bloodline, it is restoring the architecture that allows wealth to survive time. This is why your journey has included so much inner work, reflection, and correction. God is not just preparing your hands to receive. He is preparing your voice, your example, and your daily decisions to teach without words. Chosen one, generational wealth in God's design is never just about accumulation. It is about transmission. What you normalize becomes the atmosphere your children grow up in. What you tolerate becomes the ceiling they inherit. This is why heaven has been so intentional with your character. Long before money shows up in visible ways, God establishes patterns of thinking, responding, and discerning. Your children may never know the nights you wrestled in prayer or the sacrifices you made quietly, but they will live inside the fruit of those choices. That is how legacy works. I remember realizing at one point that I was no longer just living for myself. Every reaction, every financial decision, every way I handled pressure was shaping an invisible curriculum for the future. That realization changed how I moved. I stopped asking, "Can I afford this?" and started asking, What does this teach? Legacy-level thinking always asks what is being transferred beyond the immediate moment. Heaven thinks generationally, even when people think transactionally. Anointed One, this is why God is breaking survival habits off your life. Survival thinking cannot sustain inheritance. When a person grows up watching fear-driven decisions, they inherit anxiety, even if they inherit money. But when they grow up watching wisdom, restraint, generosity, and order, they inherit stability even before they inherit resources. God is ensuring that what flows through you carries peace, not pressure. Your bloodline does not need more stress dressed up as success. It needs clarity, structure, and confidence rooted in God, not in circumstances. You may have noticed that your patience has been tested repeatedly, not because God enjoys stretching you, but because patience is the language of long-term stewardship. Short-term thinking spends, long-term thinking builds. This is why heaven does not rush you into visibility or excess. It is teaching you how to think in decades, not moments. That way, when increase arrives, it does not intoxicate you. It partners with you. Chosen. One wealth that outlives a generation must be accompanied by story, meaning, and purpose. Children who inherit money without understanding why it exists often treat it as entitlement. Children who inherit money connected to purpose treat it as responsibility. God is not creating heirs who consume. He is creating stewards who continue. That is why your life has carried so much instruction, even through pain. Instruction is rarely comfortable, but it is always valuable. There is also a spiritual inheritance that must move alongside financial provision. Confidence in God, discernment of voices, and respect for order are as valuable as capital. I have seen families with modest means raise children who built extraordinary lives because they inherited wisdom. I have also seen families with abundance collapse because wisdom was never transferred. Heaven is correcting that pattern through you. What was missing before is being restored now. Anointed One, pay attention to how your conversations about money have changed. You are less impressed by appearance and more attentive to substance. You are no longer drawn to reckless risk or emotional spending. That shift is not age or fatigue. It is alignment. Heaven is rewiring your instincts so your children inherit discernment as naturally as they inherit traits. Discernment is one of the greatest forms of wealth a parent can pass down. This is also why God has been healing your relationship with authority, order, and structure. Generational wealth collapses where authority is rejected and structure is despised. God is not controlling you. He is teaching you how to operate within systems without becoming enslaved to them. That balance is rare, and it is essential for legacy. Your bloodline is being trained to lead without abusing power and to prosper without losing humility. Chosen One. There may have been moments where you felt like you were carrying responsibilities that did not belong to you yet. That sensation was not imagination. It was preview. Heaven often lets you feel the weight of the future before it arrives, so you are not shocked when it does. Wait without preparation crushes people. Wait with preparation strengthens them. God always prepares before He promotes. I have learned that what feels heavy now often feels light later because capacity has increased. When God expands capacity, what once overwhelmed becomes manageable. That is happening in you. The patience you are developing, the restraint you are learning, the clarity you are gaining, these are not delays. They are upgrades. You are being upgraded to carry something durable. Anointed One, do not underestimate the power of example. Your consistency will teach more than your instructions. Your calm will instruct more than your lectures. Your generosity will speak louder than your explanations. Children learn how to handle wealth by watching how peace or panic shows up around it. God is training you to model peace. Peace is evidence of trust. Trust is the foundation of sustainable provision. You are also being taught how to separate identity from income. That separation is critical. When identity is tied to money, money controls behavior. When identity is rooted in God, money becomes a tool. Tools can be used wisely or poorly, but they do not define the person holding them. Your bloodline will not be enslaved to provision because you are learning how to hold it loosely while stewarding it faithfully. Chosen one. This is why your life has required integrity, even when compromise would have produced faster results. Speed without integrity builds nothing that lasts. Integrity creates continuity. Continuity is the backbone of generational success. What God builds through you will not require constant repair because it is being built correctly the first time. There is a quiet dignity being restored to your family line. Decisions will become less reactive. Communication will become clearer. Conflict will lose its power to destabilize. These shifts are not separate from wealth. They are the environment that allows wealth to remain. Chaos is expensive. Order is profitable. Heaven always invests where order exists. As you continue forward, understand that you are not just changing outcomes. You are changing expectations. Your children will expect stability where instability once lived. They will expect provision where lack once spoke loudly. That expectation itself becomes a magnet for opportunity. Expectation shapes behavior, and behavior shapes destiny. This is the unseen work of generational transfer. Before the accounts grow and the assets expand, the atmosphere changes. And right now, the atmosphere around your bloodline is shifting. What once felt fragile is becoming grounded. What once felt uncertain is becoming ordered. This is not accidental. It is deliberate. Remain attentive. Remain surrendered. You are not building alone. Heaven is involved in every layer, shaping not just what you receive, but what remains long after you are gone. There comes a moment when God shifts the question you are asking. At first, the question is, will I ever break free? Then it becomes, how do I sustain what is coming? That shift marks the transition from survival to stewardship. You are standing in that transition now. Heaven is no longer testing whether you can endure lack. It is examining whether you can carry abundance without losing alignment. This is where many people stumble, not because they are unworthy, but because they never learned how to see wealth as assignment instead of reward. Chosen one. Divine provision always arrives with responsibility attached to it. God does not send increase merely to improve comfort. He sends it to fulfill calling. That is why the wealth moving toward your family line feels purposeful, not flashy. It carries weight, not hype. It feels quieter than you expected because it is meant to last. When God entrusts resources, He also entrusts influence, and influence shapes lives beyond your immediate circle. I learned this lesson in a season when I finally received what I had prayed for, only to realize that the joy was quickly replaced by a deeper sense of accountability. The blessing did not remove pressure, it redefined it. I was no longer responsible only for my own outcomes. My choices now affected others. That realization forced me to seek wisdom instead of excitement, counsel instead of applause. That is when I understood that true wealth is not freedom from responsibility, but grace to carry it well. Anointed One, God is aligning you with that same understanding. The calling over your life is not casual, it is precise. The reason heaven has been so involved in shaping your discernment is because the resources attached to your assignment will amplify whatever already exists in you. Wealth does not change people, it reveals them. God refines you first, so that what is revealed glorifies Him rather than distorts your purpose. This is also why your journey has included moments of isolation. Isolation is not abandonment, it is focus. God often separates those He is about to elevate, so their identity is anchored in Him rather than in crowd approval. When resources come without that anchoring, people begin to perform instead of steward. Heaven does not fund performance, it funds purpose. What you are receiving is meant to build, restore, and heal, not impress or compete. Chosen one, pay attention to how your definition of success has changed. You are less interested in recognition and more concerned with impact. You are less drawn to excess and more attentive to sustainability. These are not personality shifts. They are signs of calling maturing. God is aligning your desires with the weight of what you are meant to carry. That alignment protects you from being seduced by shortcuts that would compromise the future He is building through you. There is also a reason God has been teaching you how to say no. Stewardship requires boundaries. Without boundaries, even abundance becomes destructive. I have seen people lose everything because they felt obligated to please everyone once resources arrived. They confused generosity with obligation. God is teaching you the difference. Generosity flows from obedience. Obligation flows from fear. Fear drains legacy. Obedience sustains it. Anointed one. The calling attached to your wealth will require discernment about where resources go and where they do not. Not every need is yours to meet. Not every opportunity is yours to fund. Heaven guides provision intentionally. When God directs resources, they multiply. When people distribute from emotion, they deplete. That is why your sensitivity to God's voice has been sharpened. You are being trained to listen before you move, to pray before you commit, to wait before you release. This calling will also require humility. Influence attracts attention, and attention tests motives. God protects you by grounding you early. He allows you to see how fragile human approval is, so you do not build your identity on it later. The applause of people fades quickly. The approval of heaven sustains generations. You are learning to value the latter over the former. Chosen one, do not underestimate the spiritual authority that comes with financial stewardship. When resources are aligned with God's purpose, they carry power to shift environments. They open doors, restore dignity, and fund solutions that outlive trends. You are not being positioned merely to accumulate. You are being positioned to authorize change. That is why heaven is so invested in your inner life. Authority without integrity collapses. Authority anchored in surrender endures. I remember realizing that every dollar, every opportunity, every connection carried direction. Money is not neutral when it comes from God. It carries assignment. It asks to be stewarded wisely. When I stopped seeing provision as mine and started seeing it as entrusted, peace replaced anxiety. The pressure to control outcomes lifted. I understood that obedience was my responsibility, not results. That understanding freed me to move without fear. Anointed one, you are being invited into that same freedom. God is not asking you to manage everything. He is asking you to remain aligned. Alignment keeps the flow open. Control restricts it. The more you trust God's direction, the more effortlessly provision moves. This does not mean passivity, it means partnership. You move when He leads. You wait when He pauses. That rhythm protects the future He is building through you. This is also why your life has included lessons about patience in success, not just patience in waiting. Many people know how to wait for blessing, but few know how to wait within it. Waiting within blessing means resisting the urge to expand faster than wisdom allows. God teaches that discipline early, so you are not overwhelmed later. Discipline preserves joy. Without it, even abundance becomes exhausting. Chosen one. The wealth attached to your calling will not isolate you from God. It will draw you closer if stewarded correctly. It will deepen dependence rather than replace it. God is ensuring that intimacy precedes increase, so that increase never replaces intimacy. That order matters. When intimacy leads, provision follows. When provision leads, intimacy suffers. Heaven guards this order fiercely in the lives of those carrying generational assignments. As this season unfolds, expect your prayer life to change. You will pray less about survival and more about wisdom, less about rescue and more about direction. Those prayers may feel quieter, but they are heavier. Heaven responds to weight, not volume. When your prayers shift, it is a sign that your role has shifted. You are no longer asking to be saved from the storm. You are being trained to steward the vessel. Remain grounded. Remain teachable. Remain surrendered. What God is releasing through you is not fragile, but it is sacred. Sacred things require care, reverence, and obedience. You are not being rushed. You are being trusted, and heaven does not trust lightly. The calling on your life is unfolding with precision. Every lesson, every delay, every refinement has been intentional. You are not late to this moment. You have been prepared for it. And as you continue forward, know this with certainty: what God entrusts to you, He also empowers you to steward. There is a point where heaven stops explaining and starts inviting. You have received insight, confirmation, and alignment, but now comes the invitation to step fully into surrender. This is where generational shifts become irreversible. Surrender is not weakness. It is the moment you release the illusion of control and allow divine order to take the lead. Many people want inheritance without surrender, but heaven only entrusts legacy to those who have learned how to lay things down. Chosen one. The reason this season feels quieter than expected is because God is moving beneath the surface. Loud seasons announce beginnings. Quiet seasons establish foundations. What is being formed now is not designed to impress onlookers. It is designed to endure pressure. You are being trained to recognize God's movement, not by noise, but by peace. Peace is often the loudest confirmation heaven gives when something is aligned. I remember a time when everything in my life looked stable on the outside, yet inside I felt an unusual pull to slow down. Opportunities were available, doors were open, but something kept whispering, "Not yet." At first I resisted it. I thought slowing down meant missing out. Later I realized slowing down was protection. God was teaching me how to discern timing, not just opportunity. That lesson preserved more than money. It preserved direction. Anointed one. This is why you are being asked to listen more closely now. The next steps of your family's wealth transfer will not come through pressure or urgency. They will come through clarity. Heaven speaks most clearly when the soul is settled. That is why distractions have been falling away. God is narrowing your focus so you can hear what matters. Focus is not restriction. It is precision. There is also a humility being cultivated in you that will guard what is coming. Humility keeps success from becoming pride and keeps provision from becoming entitlement. Pride spends quickly. Humility invests wisely. You may have noticed that your appetite for excess has diminished. That is not loss of ambition. It is maturity. God is aligning your desires with sustainability, not spectacle. Chosen one surrender also means trusting God with outcomes that extend beyond your lifetime. Legacy-level thinking requires releasing the need to see everything completed personally. Some of what you build will be enjoyed by others. That does not diminish your role, it magnifies it. You are becoming a foundation layer, not just a beneficiary. Foundations rarely receive applause, but everything stands on them. This is why your obedience matters, even when it feels unseen. Heaven records what people overlook. The consistency you practice now becomes the stability your children inherit later. The calm decisions you make today become the emotional security your bloodline rests in tomorrow. Nothing about this is wasted. Nothing is accidental. Anointed one, as surrender deepens, you may notice a strange mix of rest and responsibility coexisting within you. That is healthy. Rest keeps you anchored. Responsibility keeps you intentional. Together they form stewardship. Stewardship does not rush. It listens. It does not panic. It discerns. God is teaching you to move from reaction to response. Reaction is driven by fear. Response is guided by wisdom. I have seen people sabotage generational blessings because they mistook urgency for direction. They moved too fast, expanded too quickly, trusted too loosely. God is protecting you from that pattern. He is slowing you just enough to ensure accuracy. Accuracy preserves legacy. When heaven directs a step, that step carries momentum that effort alone cannot produce. Chosen one surrender also involves releasing old narratives about money, success, and worth. Many of us were taught that wealth proves value. Heaven teaches that value precedes wealth. You are not becoming worthy because provision is coming. Provision is coming because worth has been settled. That distinction protects your identity. When identity is secure, resources become tools rather than trophies. You may find yourself re-evaluating commitments, expenses, even conversations. That is discernment increasing. God is sharpening your awareness so that nothing drains what is meant to build. Not everything that feels good is beneficial. Not everything that looks profitable is aligned. Heaven is training you to sense alignment before evidence appears. That sensitivity is part of the inheritance you are passing down. Anointed one, surrender also means trusting God with timing, even when comparison tries to speak. You may see others receiving quickly what you have waited years for. Do not let that disturb your peace. Speed does not equal significance. Some blessings arrive fast and leave faster. What God is releasing through you is designed to stay. Permanence often moves slowly because it is being rooted deeply. There is also a spiritual protection forming around your decisions. As surrender increases, confusion decreases. Doubt loses its grip. You begin to recognize when something is not yours without needing to analyze it excessively. That clarity is not arrogance, it is alignment. When alignment is present, unnecessary striving fades away. Chosen one. This season will require trust even when instructions feel simple. Sometimes God asks for obedience in small things to prepare us for larger stewardship. The way you manage what seems insignificant now reveals how you will manage what is significant later. Heaven watches patterns, not moments. Patterns reveal readiness. I want you to understand something clearly. Surrender does not mean passivity. It means partnership. You still plan, you still act, but you act from listening, not pressure. You plan from wisdom, not fear. That posture keeps the flow open. God does not pour through clenched hands. He pours through open ones. Anointed one, you are being taught how to carry peace in motion. Motion without peace creates burnout. Peace without motion creates stagnation. God is teaching you balance. Balance sustains momentum. This is why your inner life has become such a priority. Legacy-level provision cannot be sustained by a fractured inner world. As you continue forward, expect subtle confirmations rather than dramatic signs. God is transitioning you from needing reassurance to walking in confidence. Confidence rooted in God does not need constant affirmation. It rests in alignment. That confidence will become an anchor for your family. Stability is contagious. When one person carries it, others begin to reflect it. Chosen one, surrender is the final threshold before trust turns into release. Heaven does not release into resistance. It releases into agreement. Agreement is born in surrender. When your will aligns with God's will, provision finds its path effortlessly. Remain attentive, remain grounded, remain surrendered. You are not losing control, you are gaining clarity. And clarity is the doorway through which the next phase of your family's multi-generational wealth transfer continues to unfold. Chosen one. There is a moment when faith stops being theoretical and becomes embodied. It is the moment you realize that heaven has already answered, and your role now is to walk in agreement with what has been authorized. This is not the season of asking whether God will move. This is the season of recognizing that He already has. What remains is alignment in action daily, intentional, grounded obedience that turns promise into pathway. Anointed one. The final stage of generational transfer is not spectacle. It is consistency. It is waking up and choosing wisdom when no one is watching. It is stewarding peace when pressure tries to return. It is honoring God with decisions that feel ordinary but carry extraordinary weight. Heaven watches faithfulness more closely than moments of intensity. What lasts is built quietly, brick by brick, choice by choice. I remember the shift when I stopped looking for dramatic confirmation and started noticing quiet fruit. Conversations changed. Opportunities arrived without force. Problems that once triggered panic now invited prayer. That was the sign that alignment had moved from theory to lifestyle. When faith becomes embodied, fear loses its authority. You stop reacting to uncertainty because you trust the one guiding your steps. Chosen one. This is where your family's future begins to feel tangible. Not because everything is visible yet, but because your inner posture has stabilized. Stability is the environment where legacy grows. Children do not need perfection. They need consistency. They need to watch someone choose integrity over convenience, patience over impulse obedience over applause. That lived example will outlast any inheritance. Anointed one, heaven is not asking you to become someone else. It is asking you to remain who you have become. Transformation has already occurred. Now comes integration. Integration is when what God taught you in pressure becomes how you live in peace. It is when lessons stop being remembered and start being practiced naturally. This is how generational blessing becomes normal instead of exceptional. You may notice that your prayers have become simpler, less explanation, more agreement, less urgency, more trust. That is not loss of passion, it is maturity. Mature faith does not beg, it aligns. Alignment carries authority. Authority attracts provision. Provision follows obedience, not noise. Chosen one, as this transfer continues to unfold, your role becomes increasingly clear. You are not meant to control outcomes. You are meant to model order. Order invites flow. Chaos repels it. This is why heaven has been so precise in shaping your habits, your speech, and your reactions. The smallest patterns often protect the largest outcomes. There will be moments when the old mindset tries to return, moments where fear whispers that you must rush or hoard or prove. Recognize those whispers for what they are: echoes, not instructions. You are no longer governed by survival. You are governed by stewardship. Stewardship listens. Stewardship waits. Stewardship acts when led. Anointed one, wealth that stays requires humility that stays. Humility keeps you teachable. It keeps you receptive to correction. It keeps your hands open and your heart aligned. God does not withdraw blessing from the humble. He multiplies it. Multiplication is not about doubling resources. It is about extending impact. Chosen one, your influence will increase naturally as your consistency becomes visible. People will seek your counsel, not because you announce wisdom, but because you embody it. That influence is part of the transfer. Influence without integrity collapses. Influence anchored in character endures. Heaven has ensured you carry the latter. I have learned that the most powerful moments are often the least dramatic. A wise decision made quietly, a generous act done without recognition, a boundary maintained even when misunderstood. These moments build a legacy that money alone cannot create. Money amplifies what already exists. God has ensured that what exists in you is stable, grounded, and aligned. Anointed one, the generational shift you are part of will not be measured only by assets, but by atmosphere. Homes marked by peace, conversations marked by respect, decisions marked by prayer. Those environments attract opportunity, creativity, and favor. Favor flows where order exists. As you move forward, do not underestimate the power of routine faithfulness. The way you handle stress, the way you speak about challenges, the way you treat people when outcomes are uncertain. These patterns are teaching future generations how to live from trust rather than fear. That teaching is priceless. Chosen one, heaven is not rushing you because what you are carrying is not fragile. It is established. What God establishes cannot be undone by delay, opposition, or misunderstanding. You are not behind schedule. You are on assignment. There may be seasons ahead where expansion accelerates suddenly. When that happens, remember what grounded you here. Do not abandon the rhythms that sustained you. Expansion without roots creates instability. Roots keep growth healthy. God has given you roots. Anointed one, your family's story is changing because your posture changed. The old narrative of struggle is losing relevance. A new narrative of stewardship is taking its place. That narrative will be told through actions more than words. Your life will explain what heaven did. Remain faithful in the small. Remain surrendered in the unseen. Remain aligned in the everyday. These are not simple instructions. They are powerful ones. Heaven honors those who can carry blessing without losing alignment. Chosen one, what has begun in you will continue through you, not by force, not by striving, but by faithful agreement with what God has already spoken. Walk forward with peace. Walk forward with clarity. Walk forward with trust. The transfer is no longer a promise. It is a process already in motion, and you are walking in it now. Chosen one, take a moment and let your spirit rest in what has been released. This is not the end of a message. It is the sealing of a divine assignment. What heaven has spoken over you today is already moving, already aligning, already unfolding beyond what your natural eyes can see. You are standing in your Kairos moment, the appointed time where generations shift, where covenant activates, and where what was delayed suddenly begins to flow. Anointed one, I declare over you that the transfer is not coming later. It is in motion now. Wisdom is settling. Alignment is locking into place. Favor is going ahead of you, preparing rooms you have not yet entered. May peace guard your heart, clarity guide your decisions, and courage anchor your obedience as you steward what God has entrusted to you and your family line. Remain faithful in the quiet. Stay aligned in the waiting. Walk forward with gratitude, knowing that what heaven begins, no one can interrupt. You are not behind. You are right on time. If this word resonated with your spirit, stay connected to this flow. Remain with this channel, subscribe if you feel led, and leave a simple comment, even 777, as a sacred acknowledgement of agreement. Carry this word with reverence. The legacy has begun. The transfer is sealed. Go forward in peace.